think the good thing really is echoing what you just said. You always come back to it, and that seems to be the thing that most people do. So, if people find that certain markets are sound investments, even when they're having moments where it's more challenged.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
How do you see the platforms, Facebook, YouTube, podcasts, right? Somebody came to my idea and told me, Harry, let's do a twin of you to do your podcast so you don't have to do it anymore. I'm like, wow, that sounds like an amazing idea. But what happened is that if I do this, I don't think that when we display it, it's going to have the same reach that we have now as Serena content, right?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, we will see, right? I think the thing that I'm trying to drive home with people is not necessarily around whether or not you use and lean into AI tools, right? I think they can be very helpful in the right places, and whether or not people are able to pull it off effectively at scale for things like podcasting and video, that's C. But I would argue, from what I've learned and through my experience, is that so far these AI engines aren't just necessarily trying to avoid AI generated content because it's AI generated, right? What they want is, you're right, like they want people getting value when they're making search queries. So now, because the bar is so low, the bar is basically zero, like every company can now go out and create, 100 articles a day and post like the top 10 ways to, invest in real estate and make money, right? And just, if you're going about it that way, it's just pulling information that it already has data around. And if that data already exists, then it's not original, right? And so if it comes across as like generic, then it knows LLMs, Google knows that it's not going to really bring the value to the person searching, because it's not showing depth. It's not showing that it understands how certain things, like generic advice like that would not be the same as if the example I gave last week in Vancouver, right? Like real estate prices here are crazy, even in this bad market. But, if you're a real estate investor and you have a multifamily property where I live in British Columbia, there's also a ton of regulation. There's a ton of things that you can't Airbnb property. There's certain regulation about how you can increase rental rates, how you give, like it's highly regulated in favor of the tenants and renters. And so unless you're able to give insights, like, and if you're an investor, an owner in a property like this, and you're thinking, okay, I'm trying to weigh out, where is the market going to go? I have a property that needs capital improvements. It's going to cost me money. I have all these, I'm not able to make the money through the current rents because it's challenged right now. Like, you really need an advisor who understands the nuance and who can help you also think, okay, we can't predict the future, but based on their experience, this is what we might expect and how we might see the market changing over the next 5 years. And then you debate, are we looking at monthly investment and revenue versus long-term capital gain type of investment. So my point is, people that know their stuff know how to touch on these things. So that doesn't mean you can't. This is one of the things I recommend people do. If you're comfortable to have hop on a weekly Zoom call with someone, maybe even in the exact same field you're in, but in a different market, right? So I'm in Vancouver, maybe someone that investment advisor speaks to someone who does the same thing over in Toronto. They meet once a week. They talk about the market. They talk about how they guided a client through a challenge while keeping private information private. And they just hit record. They keep it simple. They don't worry about production costs. They don't worry about an audience even. This is the big thing I'm trying to encourage people. If they're not interested in being content creators, you actually don't need an audience for this to matter. But publish those conversations through podcast feeds, which is very easy to do that part, and start getting those conversations indexed by Google, indexed and read and crawlable through those ChatGPT. And they can then start recognizing the depth that you have as a practitioner, as a business. And, depending on what business you're in, I can see there's different versions of how to do this. Or maybe you pair up with somebody in your market who's a legal advisor or someone who deals with financing, right? And have these conversations. And what people don't realize is that transcripts are now being auto-generated, which means your conversations are highly searchable. It adds a lot of depth, a lot of nuance, showcases that you truly have that expertise. If you're brand new, if you're a new entrepreneur, say you're an emerging investment advisor, pair up with that legacy person that has absolutely no footprint online. Help them, you might get value out of supporting their business. You might get referrals from them when the market starts picking up, but you also then get to be associated with that expertise. It showcases that you care. It showcases that you're interested in what you're doing and that you are committed to like serving your clients in a way where, it's not just superficial. And so where can you use AI to do this? Take those conversations, take those AI generated transcripts, and then ask ChatGPT, create an 800-word article pulling out like the top 3 takeaways from this conversation and post that on a public facing article or a blog or a LinkedIn newsletter. And then you start getting things working for you, right? If once a week is too much, twice a month, like over time, this stuff will compound. And most businesses, business owners, most professionals, most entrepreneurs are not thinking about the internet in this way. They're thinking about chasing algorithms and going viral if they are, creating content, but they're not necessarily showcasing this depth and expertise. And this is where these AI models are going to start recommending people. And, for someone that could make $150,000 off of one deal, that matters, right? That matters a lot more than 10,000 followers on Instagram, in my opinion, in most cases, not in all, maybe.
So tell us a little bit more about your story, how you started as an entrepreneur.
I mean, I started young. I got into real estate really young. I moved out of my parents' house at 18 and ended up buying a property young. And that was around the time when the market, if you're a new entrepreneur, you probably won't remember this time, but it was back in the heyday of like all these home renovation shows and Love It or List It homes on HGTV. And people were really excited about real estate. I never actually thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but, I was independent early and was going to school and realized I don't know where I'm going with my academics, where I'm going to be able to like make money anytime soon. So I just took a leap. And I will say that the market I started in looked a lot like it does today. I first became a realtor in January of 2008, which was basically like the beginning of the financial crisis. And it wasn't as bad here in Canada, but everything did slow down and they're notoriously cautious. And so the market came to a screaming halt. So I had to figure out very early on about how to invest in myself without investing necessarily a lot of money, like how to learn. So that was also the beginning of social media, right, in a meaningful way. So I did get involved on, Facebook and Twitter and started playing around with like, how can I get in front of people and be visible and hopefully,
Back
when
in the
things
day, it was Blackberries.
it
Around
was,
this,
yeah.
yeah,
It was
it was
Blackberries.
no
The
Blackberries was the big deal back
Oh
then.
man, I had a cell phone at this point, right? The things
My
have
first
changed a
business
lot.
was also in real estate, and I
Yeah.
started there in 2007 and 2008. And remember with
It
the
was a tough
crisis.
time. Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah,
the one
not for
thing
us
I
in
will,
London. I mean,
yeah.
not for me. I mean, not for what happened was that what happened because it was the credit crunch, all right? A lot of people that have the flats, they leave the flat because they couldn't afford because they lost their jobs and so on.
Mhm.
So then we have all the landlords with all the units empty. And
Yeah.
on the other hand, we have a bunch of people that they were looking for rooms for the same reason. They couldn't afford the whole flat. So then
Hmm.
I job and I said to Alano, how about if you rent me your flat at a good price, and then I will rent the units room by room. So in one side I have all London empty, and on the other side I have a lot of people looking for rooms. So it was a very good exercise in times of crisis. So every time that there is crisis, I'm like, wow,
There's
more
always
excited in
opportunity.
crisis than
There's
than
always
the normal
opportunity.
times. Yeah,
Yeah. And I know for
but you
the
have to be
new
creative.
you
You
do
have to
have
be
to be
creative.
creative. I think you have to be willing to learn. You have to be curious. And sometimes that's like, it's always important to listen to the people around you that have been doing it a long time, but then you also have to know when to tune them out because a lot of the folks who've been doing things a long time aren't able to necessarily see the world for the way it is now. So you have to be willing to trust your instincts a little bit too about where to lean in and where to like stand out and be first. And this is actually, I would argue, probably one of the most compelling times to be able to do that since that time that I experienced in that 2008 moment.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be sharp. I remember that the world was falling apart. I'm like, oh my God. I was having conversation with myself. Should I really should be expanding this thing? And
Well,
out the
and
shares in Canary Wharf in London pointing down, and like
yeah.
I was
Mm,
I was there really busy again with my real estate thing. I didn't just wanted to make some money,
yeah.
and yeah, that was my beginnings. I'm very grateful for real estate.
Hmm.
I have to say that it's not my passion. My plan is speaking in public. I do the conference that I do all over the world: Singapore,
Hmm.
Dubai, Mexico, Peru, United Kingdom, US. However, I'm very grateful to real estate. And at the beginning, I did it just to make money. Then I make money, and I was no feeling that I'm tired of the real estate thing. But I always come back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always come back to the real estate.
Hmm.
It's eventually find what you find is trying a strategy that works better for you, right?
Hmm.
Because ours, the within London rent to rent were operational, very intense.
Hmm.
So now we're looking at new developments, right? So we sell the whole new developments, and this
Yeah.
is sales, and because new developments a lot of units, and at least it's not that operational as intensive, but you learn. So tell us what are the good, the bad, and the ugly of the being a real estate investor. Because out of the 500 millionaires we interviewed in this podcast, one of five are real estate millionaires.
Oh
And
man, I
a
feel
lot
like
of people are listening to this, right? And just as a general perspective, okay, what do you think is good? What do you think is bad? And what do you think is ugly when it comes to real estate?
I mean, that's a good question. I think the good thing really is echoing what you just said. You always come back to it. And that seems to be the thing that most people do. So, if people find that certain markets are sound investments, even when they're having moments where it's more challenged, you kind of know it's going to roll back, right? You can't necessarily know where prices are going to go. But I'm like I said in a very expensive market, and people have been talking about the bubble bursting my entire life. And it certainly it's harder moments, but it never bursts. The air usually comes back and then the bubble gets bigger, right? So depending on which side of things you're on, I mean, if you're investing, usually that means a good thing. But I think the bad, like when people try to time the markets, that can be very difficult, and even the best people have a hard time with that. So I think letting go of knowing, you can make good decisions based on good data, but especially for new people, especially in the world where now people are speculating on so many things. Like we don't have time for it today, but I've had some pretty interesting and deep experience kind of in the crypto space. But you see human behavior, right? People think they win one time, that they're going to keep winning.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.